"Come with me," the little black girl said to the man, curled up on the bus stop bench, his arms wrapped tightly around himself, not from the chill of the winter night, but from something colder inside. Something that had nothing to do with the snow falling around him like a quiet hush over the sleeping city. Maya had seen him before her mother did. As they walked home from the corner store, she noticed the man sitting there, motionless beneath the flickering street lamp. His coat looked expensive, but he wore it like it didn't belong to him. His eyes, when she caught a glimpse of them, were distant and tired. There was a slump to his shoulders, like something had broken and never quite healed. She paused mid-step, groceries swinging slightly from her mittened hand. He'd been there a long time. She could tell. She felt it in the stillness around him. Maya was only 6 3/4, but she had a way of seeing people that went beyond their clothes or expressions. She could see sadness, and she knew when someone needed help. Without a word, she let go of her mother's hand and walked toward the man. "Come with me," she said again, her voice gentle but full of purpose. The man looked up, startled. His eyes, gray and clouded, met hers. There was confusion in his face, then something softer. He didn't speak. Maya reached out her small hand. "It's okay. My mom's making soup. She won't mind. You look cold and kind of alone." He stared at her. Then slowly, like a man waking from a long sleep, he reached out and took her hand. Across the street, Ava froze. She had just turned to say something to Maya and instead found her daughter gently leading a strange man, clearly older, clearly lost, toward their house. Her heart jumped. For a second, she nearly shouted, but she didn't because she knew her daughter. Maya wasn't reckless. She was kind, observant, and deeply intuitive in a way that often startled Ava. She had a habit of bringing home stray cats, bruised birds, once even a retired teacher who got confused and wandered off the bus. And now, it seemed she'd found someone else who needed shelter. Ava's breath caught as they approached. Her eyes scanned the man, well-dressed but disheveled, exhausted. Not dangerous, but clearly carrying something heavy. "Mama, this is—" "I forgot to ask his name," Maya said brightly. The man cleared his throat. Michael Reynolds." Ava hesitated only a second longer, then stepped aside. "Well, Michael, come on in. It's too cold for anyone to be out tonight." He entered slowly, as if unsure whether he was dreaming. The warmth of the house wrapped around him, cozy, lived in, full of the scent of thyme, garlic, and something simmering on the stove. Maya kicked off her boots. "Sit down. Mama's soup helps everything." Ava moved to the kitchen, ladling generous portions into 2 bowls and pouring hot coffee into mismatched mugs. She watched the man closely as he settled at the small table, grateful but quiet, looking around as if the whole scene were unfamiliar. The warmth, the light, the way Maya danced through the room like joy itself. When he took his first sip of the soup, something changed in his face. His shoulders relaxed. His hands stopped trembling. "It's just soup," Ava said, placing a napkin beside him. "It's not," Michael replied. "Not tonight." Maya leaned her chin on the table. "You can come back, tomorrow. And the next day, Mama always makes too much." Michael glanced at Ava. "I wouldn't want to intrude." "You wouldn't be," Ava said softly. "We all need somewhere to go." He looked down at his bowl, then at the little girl beside him. "I don't know why I came," he admitted. "I don't even know where I was headed." Maya smiled. "Sometimes people don't need to know, they just need to be invited." And so he stayed. And for the first time in years, Michael Reynolds, a man once surrounded by boardrooms and silence, felt the quiet, steady pulse of something he hadn't known he was missing. A place to sit, a bowl of soup, a little girl's hand, and the warmth of a home that asked for nothing in return. Michael returned the next evening. He hadn't planned to. His driver had already been waiting outside his midtown penthouse, ready to take him to a cocktail reception for tech investors. He had the tailored suit, the polished shoes, the mental checklist of who to smile at and who to avoid. But as he stepped into the elevator, something shifted. He walked out with no explanation, carrying nothing but a paper bag from a local bakery. Rosemary focaccia, warm and soft, still steaming through the waxed paper. He didn't even like bread, but he remembered what Maya had said. "You bring the bread." The street looked different without the snow, but the row of brick houses was easy to spot now. Warm porch light, second from the end. The only one with a handmade wreath, frayed at the edges, hanging slightly crooked on the door. He knocked once, then again. Footsteps. Ava opened the door wearing the same faded apron. Her eyebrows lifted at the sight of him and the bag. "You really brought bread." Michael lifted the bag slightly. "As instructed." "I suppose that means you're staying for soup," she said. "If the offer is still open," she nodded once and stepped aside. Maya came bounding in from the kitchen like a small joyful comet. "You came back," she cried, arms raised like he just returned from war. "Is that the bread?" "It is," he handed her the bag. "Hope it passes inspection." Maya tore it open, took a deep whiff, and nodded solemnly. Approved. The kitchen was warmer than he remembered. A different soup was bubbling this time, lentil from the smell of it. Ava moved around the stove with quiet efficiency, never quite looking at him directly, but never asking him to leave either. Michael watched her in silence for a while, then took a seat at the same small table. Maya joined him, dipping a torn piece of focaccia into her hot chocolate. "Do you always eat soup every night?" he asked. "Not always," Maya replied. "Sometimes we do oatmeal or grilled cheese, but soup is Mama's favorite. She says it stretches." Ava added from the stove. "Feeds more people for less." Michael nodded slowly. "Smart." They ate in a rhythm that felt familiar by the second spoonful. Maya talked about her school, about a girl named Tanisha who braided her hair during lunch and a math test she wasn't excited about. Michael listened genuinely. Ava spoke little but observed everything. When dinner was done, Maya cleared the table without being told. She hummed as she moved, a little tune Michael couldn't place, but somehow felt he had known in another life. Ava poured more coffee. She slid a mug to Michael, then sat across from him, her fingers curling around her own cup. For a long time, neither of them spoke. He broke the silence. "I don't usually do this. Eat soup." He smiled faintly. "Go places unannounced. Talk to strangers. Sit still." Ava sipped her coffee. "You don't seem dangerous." "I'm not," he said. "Just lost maybe." She looked at him for the first time that night, not past him, not through him, but at him. "What are you running from?" Michael hesitated. The truth bubbled just under the surface, like her soup, but not quite safe to serve. "I don't think I know," he said. Ava gave a single nod as if that answer made perfect sense. "People usually think it's money that makes them safe," she said. "But sometimes it's just knowing someone's cooking dinner." He stared into his coffee. "I haven't had that in a long time." "Maya doesn't let anyone eat alone," she said quietly. "She got that from her dad." Michael looked up. "Is he gone?" Ava said simply. 3 years now, cancer." He let that settle. "I'm sorry." "So am I," she replied. "But I still make soup because someone has to." Michael didn't respond. Instead, he reached for the bread again, tore off a small piece, dipped it in the last bit of broth in his bowl. It was quiet, comfortable. Maya returned and climbed into Ava's lap, her head resting on her mother's shoulder. "Can Mr. Michael come again?" she mumbled sleepily. Ava looked at him over her daughter's curls. Her eyes were softer this time, cautious still but open. "That depends," she said. "Is he planning on bringing more bread?" Michael smiled. "I can do that." Outside, the night was colder than the last, the wind sharper, the stars buried behind low clouds. But when Michael stepped out onto the porch, he felt none of it. The warmth followed him, tucked beneath his collar, stitched into his chest like something fragile and important. He turned back one last time. Ava stood in the doorway, arms folded, leaning against the frame. She didn't smile, but she didn't shut the door either. Good night, he said. Ava gave a single nod as if that answer made perfect sense. People usually think it's money that makes them safe, she said. But sometimes it's just knowing someone's cooking dinner. He stared into his coffee. I haven't had that in a long time. Maya doesn't let anyone eat alone, she said quietly. She got that from her dad. Michael looked up. Is he gone? Ava said simply. 3 years now, cancer. He let that settle. I'm sorry. So am I, she replied. But I still make soup because someone has to. Michael didn't respond. Instead, he reached for the bread again, tore off a small piece, dipped it in the last bit of broth in his bowl. It was quiet, comfortable. Maya returned and climbed into Ava's lap, her head resting on her mother's shoulder. Can Mr. Michael come again? She mumbled sleepily. Ava looked at him over her daughter's curls. Her eyes were softer this time, cautious still but open. That depends, she said. Is he planning on bringing more bread? Michael smiled. I can do that. Outside, the night was colder than the last, the wind sharper, the stars buried behind low clouds. But when Michael stepped out onto the porch, he felt none of it. The warmth followed him, tucked beneath his collar, stitched into his chest like something fragile and important. He turned back one last time. Ava stood in the doorway, arms folded, leaning against the frame. She didn't smile, but she didn't shut the door either. Good night, he said. Good bread, she replied. As he walked away, the city seemed quieter, less hollow. And in his coat pocket, he found a small drawing on notebook paper, clearly Maya's. 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a crooked sun. One wore a crown. For the first time in years, Michael laughed out loud. And just like that, he knew he'd be back again tomorrow. It became a habit, a strange, tender, inexplicable habit. Michael started arriving every evening just before dinner, always with something in his hands, saw a loaf of sourdough, a jar of strawberry preserves, once even a small box of tea bags from a boutique store uptown. He never asked to stay. He simply knocked, waited, and was let in. Ava never invited him outright, but she never turned him away either. Maya acted like he had always been there. She greeted him with hugs now or silly salutes and started saving him a seat at the little table without being asked. She'd ask about his day with genuine curiosity, tell him what her teacher said or what she dreamed the night before. One night she called him our Tuesday visitor and then quickly added, or Wednesday, or always. Michael laughed at that. And yet each evening the truth became harder to ignore. He didn't want to leave. Something about the rhythm of their lives pulled him in. Ava stirring soup while humming softly. Maya setting 3 mismatched plates. The low light of their kitchen softening the edges of the day. There were no questions about his job, no demands, no expectations, just soup, bread, laughter, silence. That Thursday, it rained. He arrived soaked to the shoulders, hair flattened and coat dripping. Ava raised one eyebrow when she opened the door and without a word handed him a towel and a pair of old sweatpants she claimed her late husband once wore. Michael changed in the small bathroom, oddly comforted by the frayed cotton and faint scent of lavender detergent. When he returned to the kitchen, Maya clapped her hands. You look like someone who reads bedtime stories, she said. I take that as a compliment. It is. My teacher says only kind people wear sweatpants. Ava smirked as she ladled soup into bowls, chicken and wild rice this time. They ate slowly that night, listening to the rain tap against the window. The usual conversation meandered through school stories and bread rankings. Then halfway through his bowl, Michael asked the question he'd been avoiding for days. What happened after your husband passed? Ava paused, spoon halfway to her lips. The world shrank, she said. Not all at once. Just little things. Phone calls stopped. People hesitated. The casseroles stopped showing up. I got tired faster. Maya cried in her sleep. Then one day, no one asked how I was. Not because they didn't care. Just people move on. Except you can't. Michael said nothing. He knew that feeling. It mirrored his own grief. Not from a single event, but from years of quiet erosion, death by 1,000 disconnections. "Why didn't you remarry?" he asked gently. Ava looked up, surprised. "You think someone wants to marry a widow with a second-hand kitchen and a kid who never stops asking questions?" "Maya is the best part," he said without thinking. She stared at him for a moment, then shook her head and smiled faintly. "Careful, Michael." That almost sounded like affection. Maybe it was. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, thick with things that didn't need to be said. Later that evening, as Maya colored at the corner of the table, Michael helped Ava dry the dishes. "You don't talk about your life," she said. "I don't have one worth mentioning." "That's not true," he shrugged. "It's just corporate meetings, endless numbers. I spend most of my time convincing people that I matter more than I do." Ava passed him a wet bowl. "But here you just bring bread." He smiled. "Maybe that's enough." She turned toward him then, leaning against the counter. "Why do you keep coming back?" He opened his mouth, closed it again. The truth swelled in his chest like a rising tide. "Because this place, it reminds me of something I never had but always wanted. Because when Maya looks at me, I don't feel like a fraud. Because you." A door slammed outside, cutting him off. They both tensed. Maya looked up, startled. Ava moved quickly, pulling Maya into her arms. Michael followed her gaze. Through the curtain, a figure stood in the shadows near the sidewalk. Tall, hooded, unmoving. "Stay inside," Ava said, voice low but firm. She opened the door cautiously, stepped halfway onto the porch. Michael hovered behind her, alert. "Can I help you?" she called. The man stepped forward into the porch light. It wasn't a threat, just a teenager. Soaked, shivering, eyes hollow. "I heard there was food," he mumbled. Ava didn't hesitate. "Come in," she said, shoes off by the mat. "You'll need something dry." Michael watched in awe as she moved, calm and certain. She handed the boy a towel, then poured another bowl of soup without asking his name. Maya gave him her seat. Michael took a breath. The night had turned again subtly, and he was reminded that this house wasn't just a place of warmth. It was a refuge, and Ava was its quiet guardian. As the boy ate, Ava looked over her shoulder at Michael and said, "Some people bring bread. Some just need a place to stop running." And Michael knew. He had found both. The boy's name was Jamal. He didn't say it right away, didn't say much of anything at first, just sat hunched over the steaming bowl, his fingers trembling slightly as he held the spoon. His hood stayed up, shadowing his eyes, and his voice, when it came, was soft as the rain that had driven him to the porch. Michael watched silently from his usual seat, unsure whether to speak or keep still. Ava, as always, knew just what to do. She didn't interrogate, didn't hover. She just kept the kitchen moving. More bread, another cup of hot tea, a folded blanket set gently on the back of Jamal's chair. Maya, meanwhile, buzzed with her usual light. "Hi," she said brightly, her small hands resting on the edge of the table. "I'm Maya. This is Mr. Michael. That's Mama. She makes really good soup." Jamal nodded without looking up. "Are you in school?" she asked. Another nod. "Do you like math?" A pause. Then, "Not really." Maya giggled. "Me neither, but I like art." That was the crack in the door. Jamal looked up just for a second. "I used to draw," he said. "What did you draw?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "Superheroes, cities, stuff like that." Michael leaned in slightly. "Do you still?" Jamal's eyes flicked to him, cautious. "Not in a while." Ava placed a napkin by his bowl and spoke softly. "You can stay the night. Couch pulls out. Clean sheets in the hall closet." Jamal opened his mouth to protest, but she held up a hand. "No conditions. Just rest. You can leave in the morning if you want." He looked at her, really looked, and something in his face shifted. It wasn't relief. Not quite. It was the ache of being seen and not judged. That rare, disarming permission to exist without explanation. He nodded again. Thank you. Later that night, Michael found himself standing at the sink, sleeves rolled up, rinsing bowls beside Ava. The clinking of ceramic, the rush of warm water, the scent of lemon soap, it felt more grounding than any high-rise view he'd ever known. That was generous, he said quietly. It wasn't, Ava replied. It was necessary. Michael dried a bowl, set it on the rack. He's just a kid. So were you. So was I. We all land somewhere. Some of us just land harder. He looked over at her, watched the light play on the curve of her cheekbone. The way her fingers moved with instinctual grace. You always open the door, he asked. When I can, she glanced at him. Not everyone's safe, but you learn to listen, to feel it in your gut. Do you ever feel it wrong? All the time, she admitted. But I'd rather be wrong for letting someone in than for turning someone away. Michael leaned against the counter, arms crossed. When I was a kid, he said slowly, my mother worked 3 jobs. We used to eat dinner at midnight, sitting on milk crates in a one-room apartment, but she never let me go to bed hungry. Ava paused, dish towel in hand. What happened to her? She passed when I was 15, he said. After that, it was just the grind. College, corporate ladders. Eventually, money stopped meaning anything. But I didn't know how to stop chasing it. She studied him for a moment. Maybe you weren't chasing money. What was I chasing then? Belonging, she said softly. The word landed like a quiet truth between them. A voice broke the stillness. Can I have another blanket? Jamal stood at the hallway door, shy but steadier than before. Of course, Ava said, moving toward the linen closet. Michael stepped forward. You cold? The boy nodded. Michael unwrapped the scarf from around his neck and handed it over. Take this, too. It's warmer than it looks. Jamal looked down at the scarf, then up at Michael. Thanks. Michael offered a small smile. Sleep well, Jamal. When the boy disappeared down the hallway, Ava turned to Michael, eyebrow raised. Was that cashmere? Maybe. She chuckled under her breath. Mr. Bread and Soup, turning generous. He shook his head. You're rubbing off on me. She laughed. Not loud, but real. Later, when he stood on the porch, ready to leave, Michael hesitated. The air was cold. The street quiet. He didn't want to go back to his apartment, not really. It would be clean, perfectly lit, and unbearably empty. Do you ever think, he asked, that maybe this is what life's supposed to be? Ava folded her arms, leaned against the doorway. What part? This? A warm kitchen, people who need each other, quiet things that matter. She looked at him, something gentle in her eyes. I think, she said, that life is what you choose to bring to the table. Michael nodded slowly. He stepped off the porch but paused. See you tomorrow? Ava smiled small, knowing. Only if you bring dessert. And with that, the door closed soft behind him, and Michael walked home with the warmth of their words stitched into the cold night air. The next evening, Michael arrived with a box of brownies from a little bakery near Union Square. Real ones, dense and dark, with chunks of chocolate and just a hint of sea salt. He had debated baking something himself, but a quick glance at his untouched kitchen, and the memory of one scorched frozen pizza had changed his mind. As he approached the familiar porch, he noticed something different. There were voices inside, more than usual. Laughter, overlapping conversations, the clink of dishes. It wasn't loud, but it wasn't quiet either. He knocked. Maya answered, grinning wider than usual. You brought dessert? I did, Michael said, holding the box aloft like a peace offering made with zero effort, but full of good intentions. Good enough, she declared, stepping aside. Inside, the kitchen was bustling. 2 women Michael didn't recognize were helping Ava with soup and salad. Jamal sat on the floor in the corner, sketching in a small notebook, more relaxed, more present than Michael had seen him yet. An older man, maybe in his 70s, was setting up folding chairs. Another kid, a boy of about 10, balanced a stack of bowls like a waiter in training. Ava looked up from the stove and nodded. "You're just in time. Grab a chair." "What's going on?" Michael asked, removing his coat. "Thursday nights," Ava said, handing him a towel. "Community dinner started with just a few people. Now, well, it grows." Michael looked around, absorbing it all. The cozy chaos, the way everyone moved like they belonged. He took a deep breath. It felt like walking into a memory that wasn't his, but one he needed. He found a spot at the table beside Maya, who was coloring a placemat with little suns and hearts. "You ever eat with 12 people before?" she asked. "Only at boring fundraisers. This one's not boring." She was right. The meal was simple: minestrone, salad, cornbread, Ava's signature sweet tea, but it was served with laughter and passed with care. People took seconds, shared stories. Jamal eventually joined the table, smiling at something one of the women said. Michael noticed the notebook tucked into his hoodie pocket, pages curled, pages full. When dessert came out, Maya stood up dramatically. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "tonight's brownie provider is Mr. Michael. Please give him a round of applause." A smattering of claps and chuckles followed. Michael, caught off guard, raised his glass of sweet tea. "Next week," someone said, "he's baking pie." "Not likely," Michael murmured. After dinner, as people trickled out, Michael helped wash dishes. Ava worked beside him, sleeves rolled up, moving with practiced rhythm. "You always do this?" he asked. "Every week since last winter," she said. "It started with Miss Ruby next door. She lost her gas line and came over for soup. Then she brought her nephew, then his friend. You know how it goes. And no one complains." Ava shrugged. "Some neighbors did at first. Noise, traffic, but most see the good." Michael rinsed a bowl, dried it slowly. "You ever think about doing more with this?" Ava glanced at him. "More how?" "Expanding. Creating something sustainable, a real program." Her brow furrowed. "Michael, this is just a kitchen." "It's more than that," he said, setting the bowl down. "You're feeding people, giving them community, hope." She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "I don't have the time or money to dream like that. You've already built the heart of it. All it needs is structure, space, a name." Ava looked at him, suspicious. "And let me guess, you know someone who can help." "I might," he said carefully. "I've been thinking. I want to be part of something that actually matters." She held his gaze for a moment, weighing his words. "I'm not interested in handouts." "It wouldn't be," he said. "It'd be a partnership. You're already doing the work. I just want to help you do more." Maya's voice called from the living room. "Mama, can Mr. Michael stay for movie night?" Ava didn't answer right away. Her eyes softened, but her posture stayed firm. "Let's talk more about it," she said finally. Michael nodded, relief flickering in his chest. "Tomorrow?" "Tomorrow." They joined Maya on the couch, a tangle of blankets and old pillows. The movie was some animated film about magical animals. But Michael barely noticed. His thoughts swirled visions of blueprints, funding proposals, community partnerships. He wasn't just dreaming. For the first time in years, he felt awake. Halfway through the movie, Maya fell asleep with her head in Ava's lap, one hand still clutching a crayon. Michael looked over, whispered, "Does she always trust people this easily?" Ava brushed a curl from Maya's forehead. "Not always, but when she does, she means it." Michael looked at the flickering screen. Then at the room, the patched walls, the chipped mugs, the warmth in every corner. "I don't want to mess this up," he said softly. "Then don't," Ava replied. Outside, the city glowed beyond the window. But inside that little house, surrounded by ordinary grace, Michael realized something quietly, undeniably profound. He wasn't running anymore. He was building something. And this was just the beginning. 2 days after the community dinner, Michael arrived with something other than food. It wasn't in a box or wrapped in brown paper. It was folded neatly under his arm, an early draft of an idea, scrolled on architectural grid paper with pencil and notes. It had no title, no grand label, just a sketch of what could be. Ava greeted him with her usual quiet smile, but her eyes narrowed when she saw the rolled-up sheets in his hand. "That doesn't look like soup," she said, stepping aside. "It's not," Michael replied. "But it might be something warmer." He laid the papers on the kitchen table, smoothing them flat between the placemats and Maya's latest drawing. It was a simple sketch of a 2-story building. Nothing fancy, just clean lines, communal tables, an open kitchen, a small library, even a studio space. He'd drawn it late at night, in the silence of his apartment, the city lights blinking behind him. Ava stared at it in silence. Michael cleared his throat. "It's a community center, or at least the start of one. A space for meals, tutoring, workshops, after-school programs, safe beds if needed. And it doesn't belong to a corporation or a charity with a name you can't pronounce. It belongs to people like you, like Jamal, like Maya." He looked at her, searching for a flicker of belief in her expression. Ava stepped back, arms crossed. "It's a nice drawing." "It's more than that," Michael said. "I can make it happen. I've got the network, the resources, the city permits guy on speed dial, but I won't move unless you say yes." Maya peeked up from the corner holding a mug of cocoa. "Does it have a slide?" she asked hopefully. Michael chuckled. "We can talk about that." Ava remained silent for a long moment, then slowly moved to the table and traced a finger along the edge of the drawing. "And who runs it?" she asked. "You do, or someone you trust." "I'll help where needed, but this is your world." "I'm just laying bricks." She glanced at him. "Why are you doing this, Michael?" He hesitated. There were 1,000 polished answers all ready to go, but none of them felt true. "Because I've built a lot of things in my life," he said quietly, "but never anything that felt like home." Her eyes softened slightly. "People will ask questions," she said. "Wonder what's in it for you." "They can," he replied. "I'm not hiding anything. I'm just tired of building skyscrapers no one can live in." The doorbell rang. Jamal stood there holding a worn sketchpad and a shy smile. "Hey," he said. "Ava said I could use the table for a school project." Ava gestured him in. "You remember Michael?" "Yeah." Jamal nodded. "You're the bread guy." Michael grinned. "That's me." Jamal settled at the far end of the table. As he flipped open his sketchpad, Michael noticed a detailed drawing of the kitchen right down to the dented kettle and chipped tiles. It was good. Really good. "You did this?" Michael asked. "Yeah, just for fun." "Ever thought about architecture?" Jamal shrugged. "Not smart enough." "That's a lie," Ava said from the stove. Michael pulled out his phone. "There's a weekend class at NYU, Beginner's Design. I could sponsor a spot for you." Jamal looked at him like he'd offered to fly him to the moon. "I'll think about it," he mumbled. That night, as the three of them sat around the table again, Maya asleep on the couch, Jamal sketching quietly, Ava sipping tea, Michael felt something shift, not a grand epiphany, just a deep, still certainty. This was no longer a series of visits. It was becoming a life. "You know," Ava said, breaking the silence. "We used to have a spot like that, a rec center, back before the city turned it into condos. My dad taught boxing classes there. Free for any kid who walked in the door." "What happened to him?" "He passed," she said simply. "Too early." "But he believed in second chances, even for strangers." Michael nodded. "So do I." She looked at him. "Then promise me something. Anything. If this happens, if we build it, it doesn't become another place people are afraid to walk into. It stays messy, loud, full of real people. Michael extended his hand. Deal. She shook it, firm and sure. The kind of handshake that meant something. Outside, the wind picked up. Another storm was on its way. But inside that little house, under the light of a kitchen lamp and the quiet hum of hope, blueprints for more than just a building had been laid. And somewhere between the drawings and the soup bowls, Michael Reynolds began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this time he was building something that would last. 2 weeks later, they stood in front of the lot. It was nothing to look at, just a stretch of cracked concrete wedged between two aging brick buildings in the Lower East Side. A crooked chain-link fence leaned tiredly to one side. Graffiti curled along the walls, and the distant hum of traffic blended with the buzz of a faulty street lamp. Michael turned to Ava, who stood next to him with her hands stuffed into the pockets of her long coat. Her expression was unreadable. "It's not much now," he said, "but the city approved the permit. This is where it starts." Ava stared at the lot in silence. The wind tugged at her hair, and for a moment, she didn't speak. Then slowly, she said, "My father used to walk me down this street every Sunday after church. He said, this neighborhood could either eat you alive or feed your spirit." Michael smiled gently. "Let's do the feeding." Then they stepped through the gate, boots crunching over gravel and broken glass. Michael pointed to the left corner. "Main entrance there, open kitchen near the front, community garden out back, studio upstairs." Ava raised an eyebrow. "You already have floor plans?" "Several," he said. "But I want your voice on every line. I want Jamal's, too." "He'd love that," she said. "He started drawing versions of the outside with murals. He's got talent. Real talent." They stood for a while longer, Ava taking in the space, her eyes scanning the ghost of what would be. Michael watched her, letting her imagine it in her own way. "When do we start?" she asked finally. Michael reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a smooth river rock painted by Maya the night before, bright red with the word home scribbled in glitter pen across the top. He knelt and set it near the front corner of the lot. "We just did." Spring had crept into the city quietly, melting the last patches of snow and coaxing new color from window boxes and street corners. But at the Hart's construction site, tension was beginning to simmer beneath the surface. The crew was working overtime. Plumbing was ahead of schedule. Walls were framed, and Jamal's mural panels had begun to take shape in bold, sweeping colors. Still, Michael felt something off, not in the work itself, but in the air. Conversations shortened. Smiles grew thinner. Ava had started staying late into the night after everyone else had gone home, tidying, reorganizing, scrubbing already clean counters. Michael noticed it one night when he brought over a fresh box of light fixtures and found her alone in the kitchen, hands deep in a sink full of sudsy water. She didn't hear him come in. "You planning on washing the steel beams next?" he joked gently. Ava jumped, then forced a small smile. "Just finishing up." Michael set the box down and leaned on the counter beside her. "You okay?" She paused, then nodded too quickly. "Of course." He didn't press, but something in her face, tight around the eyes, still in the mouth, told him otherwise. A few days later, it surfaced. A neighborhood landlord, notorious for hiking rents and threatening longtime residents, filed a complaint with the city. He claimed the center violated zoning restrictions, that it was attracting unregistered foot traffic, that it posed potential disruption to surrounding property values. Michael saw the letter before Ava did. He read it 3 times, heart pounding, the familiar surge of corporate language weaponized to destroy goodwill. He could already see the headlines, the whispers, the subtle nods of "I told you so" from people who had never set foot near the hearth. That evening, when he finally told Ava, she didn't yell. She didn't cry. She folded the paper with a precision that shook him more than either. "I knew it was too good to last," she said quietly. Michael shook his head. "No. This is just noise. I'll handle it. They're going to come after you, too. Let them." "I mean it," she said, voice sharper now. "You've put your name, your money into this. If it collapses, you take the fall. I can take it. Ava looked at him hard.